Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome back to Couples Chronicles with your boy, Lloyd.
And Afia.
So if this is your first time tuning in, we're married, but we don't always agree on every topic that we discuss. But we've chosen to build a life of love, laughter, and respect. So take a seat, listen closely if you're driving as we tackle our chronicles for the day. You ready?
Yes, do it.
All right, so chronicle number 1. Should couples fight fair or avoid fighting altogether?
So when I think about this idea of avoiding fighting altogether, I think about holding your tongue, right? Like being afraid to speak your mind. And sometimes that is choosing peace, right?
Okay.
Like, you know what? I'm going to walk away from this argument. I'm going to walk away from this conversation and just choose the latter.
Okay.
However, I do think that there's a way to argue in a way, or even just tell your truth in a way that your partner understands, that still can be respected and received in a respected way, even if they don't agree with you.
Okay.
You understand?
So that makes perfect sense here in a calm setting, right? So if you're in a what we like to call argument, a lot of times both parties, the energies are heightened, right? And you know me, I'm a person of peace.
Right.
I really don't like to argue. That's one of the most things that makes me annoyed. I really don't like to argue. So when you say argue, I think you're right. There are ways that we can have a discussion without it going to an argument, but that don't always work. In a real world, that don't always.
I think you have to be with somebody where, you guys kind of, find your balance. And that takes time, right? Because I think if we're discussing something and we don't agree, most times you're going to choose peace and I'm going to choose fire.
So what's more importantly is understanding your partner. Because I've lived, because we're married, right? Once you're fixated on a position,
right,
you're full force in that position,
yeah,
which is fine. Again, if y'all heard me say before that I love a strong woman. So I don't necessarily want you to back down per se.
Yeah.
What I want you to do is understand my position and not necessarily be okay with it, but respect my position.
Yeah.
So if we have the two options of fighting fair or not fighting at all, I think I will just choose the not fighting at all position.
And I feel like I'm going to choose fighting fair.
Of course. I love it. For sure.
You know what it is? I don't know if you guys saw the new season of Bel-Air, but one of the things that I love about the relationship of Vivian and Phil in Bel-Air is the way that Vivian consistently allows herself to have this level of raw communication with Phil, right? And it's never in a manner that's disrespectful. It's always in a way that's like, you know what? All guards down. This is how I feel. It might not, be in the most packaged way that has a bow on it, but this is raw. This is how I feel, and sometimes your partner needs to hear that, to hear you and to hear your heart in a way that allows them to come back to the relationship and say, okay, these are the things that I need to fix. These are the things that I need to make better in order for the relationship to even work, right? And sometimes you need to hear that.
I agree with you. Look, I completely understand. But I think what people need to understand is this takes time.
Right.
This takes understanding.
Right.
This takes understanding who your partner is.
Right.
What sets off their tics.
Right.
And
knowing that they're not, and knowing that they're not, the things that they're saying it from a place of love. And I feel like when we got married, right, and I feel like it took you time to get there, but I think that, even when you're married or even when you're in a relationship, knowing that when your partner is saying something to you, that is coming from a place of love, that is coming from a good place, that genuinely, that whether I'm saying something to correct you or saying my opinion on something, it's because I genuinely want the best for you and that I'm not trying to come for you. Sometimes when somebody has constructive criticism or just criticism in general, it could feel like, oh, you trying to come for me. Right? Like sometimes I think when you're married or in a relationship, you want to feel like, you know what, my partner is saying this to me because they feel like you feel like they genuinely have your best interest at heart, that they want you to win, that they want you to succeed, and that they only want the best for you, that it's not trying to tear you down in any capacity, right?
It takes two, and I'm going to say this very, it takes two adults
to get there. Right. No, I get that. Right, because it could be like, it's hard. No, I feel you, because you could say something and it could very well go to like what you mean.
Yeah, it takes
it could vary when someone says something to you that you're not, that you don't necessarily want to hear or necessarily agree with. it could very much go to what you're trying to say. Like, and don't get me wrong, I understand that. But I think with you and it being married, you know, and there are so many circumstances where, you know, if I'm saying something to you, at no point do I ever want you to feel like I'm trying to come for you, or vice versa.
That's why we're still married. No. To be correct, because we've had, you know, everybody have problems. We've had our set of problems. We've had therapy or whatever. And I know the one thing I've said, I say very frequently, even when we get into our disagreements, I ask a question. I say, babe, do you feel like I'm trying to intentionally hurt you? Do you feel like I'm, like you said, coming for me? Right. Do you think I'm trying to like just hurt you? If your answer is yes to that question, we have different problems.
Yeah, like you're with the wrong
person. Yeah, we have different problems. Like if I feel like we're heated and we're just strong in our own position, I could deal with that.
Yeah.
When I said that to you, I'm also taking that for myself. Is what my wife's saying, is she trying to hurt me? Or in her head, even if it's only in her head, feel like or in her description or of what she's trying to say, is she trying to make me better, or is it coming from a good place?
Right.
Then I could sit back and be like, even if I still disagree with your point, I know it's not hurtful. It's not coming from a hurtful place, and I don't feel like you're trying to actually hurt me. And I say this to you also too with friendships.
Yeah, that's tough.
When stuff happens, I'm like, you feel like your friends are really trying to hurt you.
I don't think, I agree with you. I think I've had better success, obviously, in my marriage. I think it's definitely harder for me to take that stance with friendships because, I don't know, it's just an area that I, you know.
Very sensitive.
Yeah, very sensitive, right? Because I think my career has always been in the limelight, my friends haven't always been happy for me. So there has definitely always been this like filtering of, are you happy for me? Is what you're saying from a place of love, or is it from a place of hate, right? Or jealousy, right? And so, and friends,
even sometimes family members,
exactly, family members as well. So it's just when you speak about from a place of, you know, friendships or even family, sometimes like kind of deciphering, you know, what is coming from a place of love versus hate or jealousy, it has been, you know, a tricky situation for me. But back to the question, like I said, when it comes down to being able to fight fair, I think it's healthy. I definitely think it's necessary because I need to be able to come to you and say, you know what, like, this is where my heart is. Like, this is really how I feel. And I want you to hear me. And sometimes hearing me might not come so pretty, right? Like it might not be delivered. No, you know what? Let me not say delivered. It might not, you know, sound how you want it to, but it's my truth. And sometimes my truth, I need to know that, you know what, I'm able to come to my relationship and being honest with you and be honest with myself. Because I feel like the only thing that holding my tongue has ever done for me is give me anxiety. Like I feel like when I hold my tongue or, you know, I bottle in how I feel, my anxiety goes through the roof. And then I also feel like it kind of, you know, has this domino effect where when I do actually say how I feel, it's like this blow up. And I try to not allow it to get there, right? Where it's just like, you do the smallest thing. You left your coat on the counter and now it's this 100 thing, you know, this list of 100 things that I hate. And you're like, well, when did you start to feel that way? Right? So I think this idea of fighting fair, in my opinion, it creates an environment of a healthy relationship that we both can pretty much say how we feel, but we know that it's coming from a place of love.
And, you know, my last point in that, and I think which is going to be a good transition, I'm going to switch the questions because it's going to transition. I know I do this a lot. But is the term fighting fair. People got to first understand what that means, right? Because sometimes in a relationship, let's do the opposite, fighting dirty.
Right.
That's what you don't want when you're in a relationship, in a marriage, because now you're taking jabs at the person. That's when it becomes personal. That's when it becomes hurtful. So giving our listeners and our viewers what she means by fighting fear is, again, I think she explained it, but just to reiterate, is being able to have a disagreement and not do those dirty things to make your partner feel
like you're trying to comfort me. Like you told your partner your deepest, darkest secret, and now they're
using that against you.
Right. Now they're using it against you. Or your most vulnerable moment. You never want to use what your partner has shared with you from a place of vulnerability and use it against them. For me, that's the easiest way to lose my trust and break my trust.
And that's the one thing that therapy has has taught us.
Yeah.
They give you skills and tools to fight fear, quote unquote.
Right.
Which leads us to our next question, which is, does therapy actually work? Is marriage therapy helpful, or does it create an environment of hostility?
That's hard, right? It's funny. I was having this conversation with my parents. They've been married for like 36 years. And my dad, he said, you get in front of the therapist and you're in therapy and it's like, you telling my business to this stranger? Like, I can't believe you went there. I can't believe you said that, right? And now when you leave therapy, you want to fight, right? And so it does feel like this, it creates this hostility when you walk away. And oftentimes, and I'm gonna be honest, because we've been through marriage counseling. I feel like when you left therapy, you was more mad than when you walked into therapy.
Me personally?
Yes. Oh, absolutely. Lloyd will be in his head.
I disagree.
He'll be in his feelings.
I disagree. So a little backstory. I was the person that didn't think we needed therapy. Yeah. Like, I was the person that thought that it did. Like, I could talk to you. I'm a person that I'm Baptist, but in Catholic they teach you to do confession. I'm a person that want to talk to God myself. Yeah. Much less go to another human being to talk about our problems. Right. Where I feel like we should be able to handle it ourselves. Right. But much like the first topic, it takes two adults to have therapy. And one of the main things with therapy that I think, again, this is not golden or this is not gold, is that you have to, first of all, therapy it's supposed to create a safe space where you can tell your deepest, or tell how you really feel to your partner, and not let it get outside of this box that therapy creates. Right. The problem then lies is when after therapy, like you said, like your dad said, is that you take these topics or discussions that was in therapy and still discuss them out of therapy. Therapy is supposed to give you the tools to be able to work around those problems, not necessarily still fight about those issues. We're supposed to be using the tools that was provided for us in that session to now tackle that problem. So if we initially take that personal or forget about the tools that we had, or it was fresh off our minds, and now we having an argument about the same thing that we just had therapy about. Yeah. How is that helpful? In that sense, I think people who experience this would say that therapy doesn't work. I think I mean we have a couple of friends I think now that has been in marriage therapy, and I guess they're still married. So
they're still married. It works.
So it works, right? Yeah. And I do want to say that marriage therapy did work for us.
I think it works. I think you just have to make a decision and choose the relationship. I think that's really what it boils down to. I've had a close friend that, when her husband got to the point of wanting to separate, she didn't even want to go to therapy. Like, she was so checked out that it was just like, I don't even want to go to therapy.
At that point, it's too late.
Right, 100%. 100%. Like, and I think she did what was best for her. But I also think that you need to go to therapy when you see kind of those red flags or those signs of, hey, like, we're not agreeing and we can't seem to come together amicably and figure this out, that we might need help. And I think that's important. Even recognizing that and seeking that help is so important, because you don't want to get to a point where you're like, you know what, I'm good. I don't even want to talk to nobody. I'm straight. Like, I don't want to see your therapist. You go your way, I'm gonna go my way. We gonna sign this paper and go.
And also the other part of therapy is that it's supposed to be unbiased, right? Right. So rather than speaking to your parents who just by nature might side with you or my side or my friends in my ear saying, oh, she tripping. Yeah. And you're also telling they're only hearing your side as well, right? Right. Not both sides.
There's always three sides: your side, his side, and the truth, right? And sometimes
I heard you say that before. I disagree.
And sometimes there's always like, don't get me wrong. Sometimes in sometimes in your truth and my truth, so
that's what I mean.
Right, there is the truth, right? So it's not necessarily that either one of us is right. It's not speaking from a place of truth. It's just how we perceive the situation, and we have experienced more oftentimes than not. We could be in the same situation and perceive and view it completely different. And my husband, he will be sitting there like
what? Are we in the same? This was just happened.
Yes,
like what?
Yes, and he will be thoroughly confused. Like, was I in the same room?
That's how my voice got high pitch. That's when I get defensive.
Yes, because more oftentimes than not, I will tell my truth on a situation, and he's like, well, how could you possibly take that from this situation? So I think it's important, right? And needless to say, I, believe it or not, agree with both stances, which is that therapy, it does work. And in my opinion, it does create an environment of hostility sometimes. It does, because as somebody that has gone through it, like I said, you do come to it. And sometimes you can't help but be defensive on what your partner is saying sometimes, right? Because assuming that you're not acting from a malicious place, right? Assuming that your actions are from a place of love, it's hard to hear that you're hurting your partner, right? So, or even that, like I said, assuming that you're not being malicious, assuming that you're not intentionally trying to be spiteful.
Sometimes words hurt or perspective hurt.
Right. So, and it hurts, but that's what I'm saying. So
I'm reflecting.
Right. And then clearly, right, it's hard. And then, so now you're hearing this, and by nature, you become defensive. And you're like, well, how could you feel that way? Or how could you perceive the situation that way? That wasn't my intent. That wasn't what I was trying to do. How could you take it that way? I never meant to hurt you, but your partner is deeply and sincerely hurt, right? And by the time you get to therapy, more oftentimes than not, it's a pattern, right? It's a pattern of action that kind of led you to that point, right? So, like I said, I think that therapy does work, marriage therapy does work, but I also do believe that it can create an environment of hostility. And oftentimes than not, it can create an environment where you feel like you're in a boxing match with your partner, right? Like where it's like, ooh, that was an uppercut. Ooh, it was a side cut, right? And now you're like, it really can. And you have to be careful that, you don't walk away from therapy, that, you have to be careful that when you do leave therapy, that you remember why you're in therapy, which is to make the relationship work, not to walk away from it and being like, oh, I can't stand. You have to remember, hey, we're in this trying to figure it out.
So for our listeners and viewers out there, so you talk about the second part of therapy, which you agree with. You agree with both sides that it does create this environment of hostility. Yeah. What do you do then?
Right.
If
like
you're
what
in
advice would you give people?
And
first of all, I think you just have to know, right? It's almost like it's whether it's marriage therapy or individual therapy, right? It's almost, even when you go to individual therapy, sometimes when you look in the mirror, you don't like what you see when what's looking back at you, right? And that's difficult. It's hard to reflect. It's hard to look in the mirror sometimes and for somebody to pose a question, and when you think about the answer, you don't like what you hear, right? So whether it's individual therapy or marriage therapy, right, you have to go into it knowing, hey, guess what? There might be some ugly truths. There might be some things that's said. There might be some things, there might be some activities where it's like, actually, I don't want to be your biggest advocate in this moment. I just want to own my truth. That's hard, right? Like in therapy, one of the things that they tell you, one activity in particular, is that when your partner is telling their truth and you have your truth, be your partner's advocate for 1 moment. For 5 minutes, just sit there and out loud, be your partner's lawyer, be their advocate. And that's tough because when you feel very strong about something, I don't want to be your advocate. I want to just own my truth and stick to my side. I don't want to defend you. Whether that be for 1 minute or 5 minutes, I don't want to do that, right? So I think when you're going to marriage therapy or individual therapy, it's important to realize, hey, what might be said, whatever those ugly truth, it's going to be hard. It's going to be hard to hear. When you walk away, you might not like how you feel, but the ultimate goal where you're trying to go is to a place of growth, self-growth, growth in your marriage, growth as an individual, right? And I think that you have to remember that has to be that has to be the goal. That has to, be the primary goal in it all.
So this question came up because, first of all, I like to bring it in. We just celebrated 5 years of marriage. Because those high five.
Woo! Where's the keyboard?
But, so, I made, it was a joke, but serious. I was like, so let me tell you guys what the key to marriage is. Even though it was 5 years, I was like, couples therapy. And I was joking, but everybody was like, oh yeah. So that's how that question came about. But yeah, so, if couples out there, you guys are struggling with any part of your relationship, I think it's we've had it, so I could talk from that. I think it's a great tool. I think.
And he didn't like therapy, guys. This is what I'm saying. So that's why I think it's so important to have this conversation, because we had two very different takes on therapy, right? And He was hard-headed. My husband was stubborn in therapy.
I'm not stubborn.
He was.
I stand on business.
He was so mad. He used to leave therapy sweating. Like, he was so mad.
Only when things didn't
go your way.
Not my way.
Well, yes, your way.
No, when it seemed one-sided.
Right.
Guys.
But things, that's what I told when I say, see, I think that, you know, like I said, therapy, you're not always going to hear what you want to hear. And that goes on both sides, right? Like, I remember my therapist, she asked me a question that really, honestly, it fucked with me. It fucked me in the head. I was, oh my God, right? Which was, so if you guys don't know, my husband loves poker. I've come around to it a little bit. But in the beginning, I was like, it was really rough for me. Very, 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 very rough. So, you know, and it was like, oh my God, is he trying to become like a professional poker player for life? Like, is this where we're going? Like, is this his new dreams and aspirations? And when I saw these professional poker players on TV that just sat there for hours with these dark glasses and like, just like, I was like, oh my God, like, is this the man that my husband is becoming now? Is this the guy that I committed to? This is not the guy I said yes to at the altar. Like, the guy I said yes to at the altar never even played poker. He never did these things, right? It's almost like I always tell him in comparison to me starting to smoke cigarettes, right? Like, what if I picked up this habit and now I'm just like disgusted at this person that he's now becoming? And my therapist, she asked me a question and she said, Afia, if this is who he is for the rest of your life, do you still want to be with him? And the answer was no. And that blew my mind. And it was so scary because I'm like, I was so young, still young, but I just couldn't believe that just like that, like my mind and this idea of my marriage changed. And it was so scary because I'm like, I love him so much. How could you just change into this person overnight or choose to do something overnight that I don't like? Like, that's not fair, you know? And that's the hardest part. I will always say that is the hardest part, in my opinion, about marriage, is that people change. And you're hoping that whoever they change into, that you're just as in love with that person. And the truth is, you may or may not be. Right. But I think that therapy creates a safe space for you to voice how you feel from both parties. Right. Like, I learned that poker for him was a place of, you know, just getting away, you know, boys' time, you know, like having a moment to himself, which is also very healthy in a relationship and when you become a parent. Right. And so once I took a stance of understanding instead of just being set in my ways, it allowed me to receive him that much more. You see, we still married, right? So, like, you know, but I had to hear him and he had to hear me, right? So I think therapy, in my opinion, it allowed me to grow so much as an individual and as a wife.
Okay, all right, that's good. If it creates an environment of hostility, though, I think y'all relationship is doomed.
Really? To be honest, I don't think that.
It's either stop therapy or figure it out yourself, or y'all can't fix it.
You know what's crazy? But I don't think that you can go to therapy without understanding that there will be hostility. Like, first of all, if things are peachy keen, you're not in therapy. Right? If things are happy-go-lucky, you're not in therapy. There's clearly things that you need to talk about that you guys cannot come together and agree on together, and that you need an outside person to help you through.
And if you're still disagreeing with each other after therapy, how are you going to fix it?
First of all, okay, so you have to come to therapy acknowledging that I'm willing to change. You cannot go into therapy saying I'm coming out the same person that I was. The two don't go hand in hand. You have to be like, you know what? I'm willing to meet my partner in the middle somewhere, and vice versa. It goes both ways. You cannot go to therapy and say, you know what? I'm right. She's wrong. He's right. I'm wrong. That's it.
I agree with you. But what I'm saying, if you come out of therapy and you still feel that way, that's what I'm saying. I don't think you guys are meant to be together. My wife is a helpless romantic. So she believes everything should work out. Sometimes people
I don't.
Two people are not supposed to be with each other, whether therapy or not. They're just not gonna.
Right, it's not gonna work. First of all, I don't think everybody should be with each other. I don't. Like I told you, I think the main way or reason that marriage doesn't work out is because people change, and who they change into, you might not like that person, and I don't think that you should be stuck or feel stuck in any capacity because you're married. Like, if I'm married a scholar that is God-driven, that is kind, that is loving, that is generous, and now you're selfish, ego-driven, like nasty. Like if you're not all
character traits,
right? People change though. Character, right? Their character changes. Right? Like we just watched the documentary Jamie Foxx. He said, I forgot God and God gave me a stroke. And he couldn't believe that. He's like, hey, God, it's me. Remember? Like Eric Bishop, when he forgot about God. You understand what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. So people change. People's character changes. People become narcissists. People like, it's not impossible. And I believe, like I said, sometimes who people change into, if they're not willing to change, and you're like, I'm just disgusted by this person in its entirety. No, we need to go our separate ways. I don't believe that. Nothing should keep you there, in my opinion.
That's what I was saying. We agree.
No.
Yeah.
No, we're not.
That's exactly what I was saying.
No, we're not. Because you're saying.
When therapy doesn't work, go your separate way.
Okay. In my opinion, the only way therapy doesn't work is if you're not willing to compromise. And we always talk about compromise. You have to be willing to come to it, and we have to be able to meet in the middle in some regard.
And if you can't?
First of all, don't even go to therapy if you're not willing to change. Like
you might, but so the question was, does it work? So if we try therapy and it doesn't work for us,
right?
Then what's the next step? That's all I'm trying to say.
I see what you're saying.
Yeah, that's all I'm trying to say. Like,
I'm just saying,
we think it works. I'm not disagreeing with you. Yeah. We both think it works. But some people...
It doesn't. And sometimes people can genuinely be stubborn. Sometimes people, like, they don't want to change. They're good with who they are.
Therapy was not going to work in the first place.
Right. And sometimes who they change into, they're so proud as people. Like, it's like, oh, I'm good. Ain't nothing wrong with me. That's that ego. Right? There's that ego. Right? Like, oh, I'm good. Like, who are you to tell me that I need to change? That's when therapy doesn't work.
All right, cool.
Okay, so I'm going to kick off the next one. 2. Do you think arranged marriages are a better system than actually finding love your own way?
I love this question. And my answer to that question is yes. Let me rephrase that. I think that there's a better chance that a marriage works in the arranged marriage system than your regular social norm. Why I say that is, if you take a look at arranged marriages, right? You have two families that are on the same social economic class, similar backgrounds. They do all this the two families beforehand. So now, your daughter, whoever, the female and the male, or male and male, whatever you want to do, are coming together on somewhat of the same background. They have somewhat of the same background. Also, what's taught to arranged marriages is roles, the roles that they have. You already know that if backhand, this person is a provider, or this person is going to be a stay-at-home mom, going to be a caretaker.
Expectation.
All this expectation is already set beforehand, so we don't have this girl there. Yeah. Anything missing there. And with those things, so, I've trained a lot of Indians, and Indians is one of the cultures that still have a lot of arranged marriages.
Yeah.
I think Chinese kind of have some too. I'm not quite sure, but Indians, I've trained like 3 Indians that have arranged marriages. And I always wondered, wow, like I thought that I wouldn't like it, because I'm thinking from a superficial point, right? How is she gonna look? How is it? Although I think that's the most, the other part of it that lacks the most is the chemistry between the two. I heard they only meet like 1 or 2 times before they actually get married, which is kind of a crazy concept, right? But if you think about all the things that you need to have a successful marriage, it's there beforehand. And I'm on record for saying, you guys have heard me, that I think marriage is more about partnership. Well, I want to say more. I think it's more, yes, let's just say what it is. It's more an important component of marriage, partnership versus love. Because when I say that, is that not that I don't love you, but I loved you before I married you. I chose to marry you because we can build something together. So the building part together is already there in in an arranged marriage system. My thoughts. Go ahead. I'm gonna pull out some stats later, but go ahead.
See, I would agree with you, but I'm too damn tall for an arranged marriage. Like, I'm going to need to know you at least 6'1" or better. Like, like, I don't know. Like, that's tough. Imagine a pre-arranged marriage for me. I'm 5'11" flat, right? So put on some boots. I might be 6 foot. Now I'm like, what if he's like 5'5" and it's an arranged marriage and I'm looking down? Like, it just, I don't know. I don't think that works. Like.
So, which is fine, right? I think you're I'm not trying to make you seem superficial.
That's not superficial.
No, you're big on looks. Like you're big, which is attractiveness, right? That thing that you can't see at first in an arranged marriage. But in those systems, that doesn't matter.
You never seen an arranged marriage where she taller than him.
So I've
show me one on Google.
So I've heard. So again, I have Indian clients. So I've heard this is how it works, right? First of all, the two families have to agree. So you have two families that kind of know each other already, the ins and outs, and they're in the same, like I told you, same class and everything. So those people got to agree first. After that, they have like a whole chart where interests, religion, all this stuff is breaking out. Then they even go into astrology. Before they make these matches, there's like a matchmaker. Yeah. It's a whole science behind it on how or why it should work. Yeah. And the numbers goes.
He's gonna bring out his stats for you guys.
The numbers goes in a arranged marriage, the divorce rate is only 6.4%. Even though the separation rate is double that amount. So they sometimes separate but not get divorced. But it's still only 12%. The divorce rate in America is 50%. 1 out of every 2 marriages ends. In this system, 6.4% divorce, which is drastically lower, and even separate, 12% separates, and it's still drastically lower than.
It is. You're right.
Like.
Clearly it works.
It definitely works, and I never thought about it because, again, like you, looks matter. I'm not. Looks matter to me too, of course. And I also talked to one of my clients that had an arranged marriage, and he's an older guy now, and he said that was the hardest part, is the chemistry, the sexual. Like they say, he said it took him about like 12 years. Like
12 years?
No, not to get to like, but even like the talks about like having kids because of the chemistry, which is tough. Which is really tough. He said that was the hardest part. But even in his own experience, he still thinks that it's a good system. Even in his own experience, sorry.
Well, I guess you know what it is outside of the looks. It's almost like a dating app, right? Except the dating app,
I thought about that when he was explaining. I thought about that.
Yeah, except the dating app, you can see each other. But essentially, when you're looking on a dating app,
you see each other, but very seldom. Yeah.
Right. And so you're compared or matched due to compatibility, right? So, I mean, I guess it's kind of the same thing.
Same science, kind of, in a lesser level. I guess like a very, what's the word? Fast food type of way. Yeah. Like not so layered.
And then it's so interesting because for you to say 12% they separate and don't divorce, which means at that point they're only married for business.
It's a term.
It's a business
like social separation or something like that. He told me.
They're not right.
Yeah. On paper, they're not divorced, but the two families come and say it's ended, but on paper they're still married, which is kind of weird to me too.
Because of business.
So, but this, we think about this system as it being, well, it's not new. We know it's old, but I don't think we realize how old it is.
Right.
Because in King's times, or even biblical times,
right, they've been doing
the two families came together to increase power. If it's two kings, two sides.
Yeah.
Or if you had like if you had like a rich guy, they would combine, and it sounds funny, but buy the daughter, or you have 20 cattle and 4 sheep, which is kind of crazy.
So what?
But it's about wealth. It sounds funny because we talk about sheep and goat and cattle and stuff, but wealth to create more power within families or wealth within families. And this was the reason that it was done, and it worked for so many years. So I don't know if it was a European thing,
though. I don't know. So I don't necessarily agree with arranged marriages. But
I don't think you do. Yeah. I think you agree that it works. But I don't think he would ever
be okay with it, right? I think, however, when it comes down to like dating people that match, you can pay for dating services and they match.
Matchmakers.
Exactly, matchmakers. I do think that's a good investment because if they're pairing you on dates, at least, you're still choosing, and you're choosing the one you're most attracted to and most compatible with personality-wise. But there are a lot of the same similarities in terms of religion, politics, background. Where do you work? What do you do? How much do you make? Right? So I do think that it takes all of those it's not little, but all of those nuances and gets those out of the way so that you can focus on your compatibility. Maybe this person is more funny than the next, right? Like maybe he laugh, maybe he makes you smile. And I think that it allows you to kind of choose those. So although I don't necessarily agree with arranged marriages, I do think dating matchmakers is a good investment.
So I'm looking that up right now as you speak, like, because we do have current day matchmakers.
Yeah.
Like, what percentage of those is that the thing that we should be doing now?
Right.
Maybe it's not arranged marriage, but should we invest in
a matchmaker?
Matchmakers,
Yeah.
because let me hear what it says. I'm trying to see.
Because imagine you go on 10 dates, right? Or you meet 10 individuals where you guys share the same political views. You guys both make a certain, amount of money. Guys both value the same thing. You might value nature. You might value high-end restaurants. You both want kids, right? Like on paper, like you match, right? But let's say this person matches you with 10 different people. You go on 10 different dates. That's a good pool to pick from. I don't know if I necessarily think in this day and age that when you're just out and about, I think it's so hard to meet someone or to meet people that check all of these boxes. And then once they check all of these boxes, now I'm actually getting to know you as a person. So personally, I really think that, matchmaking services are a good investment, especially if I'm looking for somebody.
Trying to find that percentage.
Yeah, like how many of them actually work, right?
Because in the science behind it is typically the same, right? Except it's not a marriage. It's more like
dating.
Arranged dating.
And also, I think arranged marriages are so permanent. Like it's right, it's marriage. So it's so permanent. Also, you don't really get to date anybody else. Like, who are the other prospects here, right? So I think
which might be part of the problem that we have, right? Why the divorce rate is so high.
Because there's other prospects.
There's so much prospects.
But like options all the time, right? Prospects. But so I think a matchmaking service would actually work because at least you're choosing your own. You're choosing your person, or your person is choosing you. Vice versa.
You all both choose to get married.
Right. You're still given a choice, and I think that choice is important. But arranged marriages.
I don't think I have a choice.
I think I would.
The families agree, and So one last.
Or they're saying what the families think is best for you is what's best, and that's the final say. Versus, you making the decision. And I think when it comes to your life, like, you should have that choice. Like, I think it's so important.
You don't know what's best for you.
Right. That's how your parents think. Your parents, like, you don't know what it actually takes. Like,
One of my old clients that I used to train probably like 2 years ago. This was like maybe longer than that, maybe like pre-COVID or right after COVID. I don't remember which one, but close to COVID time. He came to me because he was a bigger guy, an overweight guy. When he came to me, he already had lost 100 pounds.
Wow.
He was still big.
Yeah.
So he needed extra help.
Yeah.
But he was preparing for arranged marriage.
Wow. And he didn't want his wife.
So imagine you're the wife.
On the receiving
like if you're a very visual, or if you're very
he plopping on you, girl.
If looks are very not that he was a unattractive man, but he was a larger man.
I can't even imagine.
And you're like, wedding day you come and it's like you have to be
and vice versa.
Oh, vice versa. I'm just saying from my side.
Yeah. Like I think, to be honest, like I said, I think I would just be so nervous that they would arrange me with somebody
just run away.
I know, like,
and I think you get kind of like if that don't. I think you get, and what I was told too is like if you get the idea around divorce is so frowned upon.
Yeah,
it's almost like a like so.
Yeah,
that kind of social kind of forced them.
Yeah,
to kind of stay together. Kind of is that bad? Is that good? I guess.
I disagree. I don't know if I would say I think that, as frowned upon as marriage,
it is.
as divorce,
in that culture, it's
is looked down.
Looked down upon divorce.
I think as looked down as it is in most cultures. I don't know any culture that divorce is,
I think
paraded.
America is so. I think our culture is not celebrated.
No,
but it's not looked down on. It's
I disagree. I disagree.
Divorce is looked down on?
Absolutely. I think that it's seen as a failure, and I think anybody going through divorce feels as if they failed, and I think it is very difficult.
Happy I could do bad all by myself. All these things that.
I don't think that's realistic, though. I don't think that's realistic. I don't think that's realistic. I really don't. I think that most people.
There's
I think
bunch
divorce.
Of fish in the sea.
I think divorce is so nasty. Like, honestly, I think it's the worst thing. Like, and I think now that I'm married, I don't know if I felt that way before, but I think that now that I'm married and I have a son, like, I realize how hard divorce is and the impact of it and how scary it is, and like that it not only impacts you, but it impacts, for me, the most important thing to me, which is my son. Not that you don't matter, but that.
It's all right. I could be second fiddle.
But I don't know. I don't know personally. I don't know anybody that has gone through divorce that it hasn't impacted them as an individual, that it hasn't impacted them as that it hasn't impacted their children, and that like they walk away just feeling like, I don't know, happy. Like, I feel like they feel like this sense of failure. They feel this sense of, that they let people down, that they let themselves down. And, I also hate that, with the shade room. I love the shade room. But I'm just saying, like, the shade room, when people break up or they go their separate ways, everything is made so public. And I think it's so hard because... Celebrities, right. And so I think it's hard enough that you're going through this in your personal life, and then to go through it in the media, and then everybody has opinions, like...
We also put our own business on the media.
Yeah.
To talk about it. There's a bunch of people that get divorced that we don't know.
Don't know about, right.
They're living a happy life and they don't move on.
Right. You're right. I
hear about this at the poker table.
Oh, boy.
All right, last Chronicles. This is your thing. Not your thing, our thing, but this was like one of your questions that you were...
Okay. Does moving in with someone heighten gender-specific roles?
I don't think it heightens it. I think it naturally happens. Just like if you have roommates, whether it's two guys, two girls, non-romantic relationship, if you move in with somebody, your roles change.
Right.
So in a relationship, though, specifically, that's what we're talking about, you have a guy and a girl, or a guy and a guy, a girl and a girl, moving together, and... Well, if it's a same sex, then gender roles gets even more complicated. But let's just say our role. We have a man and a woman moving in the house. What are our roles then? Like, you're gonna ask, am I expected for you to cook, clean?
I feel like we should talk about these things before we agree to move in.
Before you move in.
Oh, absolutely. Because I don't want any surprises. I don't want your expectations. I don't want to feel like I'm not meeting your expectations, and I don't want to feel like you're not meeting my expectations. I also want to be in the know of what those expectations are prior to moving in together.
Have that conversation with me.
100%.
No, I want to know. Have that conversation with me.
What do you mean?
We're moving in together. We decided to move in together. We did have that conversation, by the way.
Did we?
No, we did not.
Oh, we didn't, right?
No, we did not. I'm trying to figure out again.
Let's
have that conversation.
I was young. I was in love. I'm older now. I got my mind on. I got my head on
let's
right.
Have that conversation,
right?
baby.
I gotta ask myself, what would I tell my children?
I think we should move in together. What is your questions to me? To make sure that doesn't happen, that you talk about.
Well, what's your expectations, right? In moving in, right? Like, are we splitting the bills 50-50? Do you expect me to cook a certain amount of nights? Would you like me to cook a certain amount of nights? Do we have a house cleaner? Like, am I expected to solely clean and you just take out the trash? Like,
take out the trash. That's what we are, fellas.
No, but seriously.
Take out the trash.
Like, do you want to have a house cleaner come?
Take out the trash, by the way.
He does take out the trash. But, like, do you want to have a housekeeper come once a month, right? Like, are we splitting that? Like, I do think all of those conversations should be had. Because like I said, like that's how when you move in with one another and you're instantly unattracted to the person that you're with, and you're trying to understand like when that happened, and you're like, well, actually you're not that clean, you don't cook, and you're actually not as domesticated as I would like you to be. And when you're used to living on your own and moving to the beat of your own drum, it looks a lot different when you're moving with somebody. And I don't know, I just don't feel like it's fair to walk into failing those expectations and you don't even know, like you're not in the know of.
So do you feel, let's be clear again, so do you feel like
absolutely,
these roles, one side shouldn't expect for these roles to change when y'all moving in together?
Yes, I do feel like moving in
heightens.
No, I'm not saying. I feel like moving in with someone does heighten gender specific roles, because I feel like like when we're living together, you would expect, or you're going to be paying attention, even if you didn't know that expectation was there. Like if you're expecting a domesticated woman, or even have any level of conservative views, you might expect me to cook. What if I don't cook? Right? Like,
did you cook before me?
Yeah.
Your dad would argue that.
He might.
He might argue that. But you cook now.
All the time.
Did I expect that from you?
No. But I do think,
happen.
It does happen, especially once you're married and have a kid, it does organically happen. But I think that if I didn't live with you and I lived on my own, I don't think that it would heighten those expectations. I think I would move to the beat of my own drum, cook when I felt like it, and I would be okay with that. But I do think once you move in with somebody, you're saying, okay, well, I'm now opening up myself to his expectations of what I should be doing and how I should be living. And I think those conversations should be had prior to agreeing to signing the lease.
So that's where I don't want to say I disagree, but that's where I have like a different line of getting the message across, right? Because I feel like when you agree to move in with someone, like I said this at the beginning, those roles kind of have to happen. If you're a person who like to move to the beat of your own drum and move, then you can't really be in a relationship. That's not what being in a relationship is about.
I don't think that sometimes you don't even realize until you do move in with someone that you move to the beat of your own drum. Because when you live separately, you make a conscious effort to like connect. And when you connect and you're with someone, they're only seeing one side of you. But when you're with them all the time, 24/7, you're living with someone, it's completely different. It's completely 100%. It's completely different. Like,
now I would say,
hold on one second. I think also too, you're the type of person that you believe, or I feel like you believe that like whatever you were doing before, you're gonna continue to do that when I live with you.
That was my thought.
Yeah.
But like, I didn't think I had to say that.
Yeah, I think you're definitely that type of person. Like, if you were cooking and cleaning, you're going to continue to do those things. If you weren't, you're not. But I feel like, for me, I would feel like when you move in with somebody, like, there is that expectation of, okay, like, I need to cook more. I'm going to clean more. I'm going to, you know.
Social media would say, you hear this mostly from, well, both sides, I guess, would say that I'm expecting wifey, what's the word?
Tendency?
Yeah, wifey, what's the word I'm going for? I'm expecting you to act like a wife, and you're not a wife yet.
Yeah.
But we're living together. If I can't see these qualities in you,
what's the
now
term?
It's called
why buy the milk if you could milk the, what is it called?
You always have a problem with it. Why buy the cow if you could have the milk for free?
Yes. Why buy the that's it. Why buy the cow if you could have the milk for free?
But we're choosing to join our lives. It might not be a marriage on paper, but we're choosing to living together, whether you want to think about it casually or not. We're choosing to combine our separate lives together. So roles for us to have a mesh or a working household, whether we're married or not, roles have to be assigned. That's just natural. So for you to say that it's heightened,
definitely,
that's only coming from a person who is still operating on an individual.
From an individual place.
From a place. Because if I'm moving with you, if I see your underwear on the bathroom floor, I'm going to take it up and throw it in the thing.
So what you're saying is that when you agree to move in with somebody, you have to be open-minded and understanding that you're going from an I to a we. And that's why a lot of people say, you know, so the old school, they would say, don't move in with somebody before you're engaged.
I would say,
yes,
you should move in with these people.
You think so? See how they are.
Yes.
But then I do think you kind of become so comfortable, and it's like you're playing. They say you're playing house.
Okay.
Because just like that, you said you're moving from being an individual to being a union, or moving as a union, and you're doing that before you're even walking down the aisle, which might be necessary, right? Because it's going to show you the full picture. But you just said you're moving from an I to a we.
So do you think the heightened role assignment is a good thing or a bad thing?
I think it's a good thing.
Okay.
I think it's a good thing because it's going to show you if this is the role you really want to play, right? It's going to show you know what? Actually, I don't mind being domesticated for this person. I don't mind cooking and cleaning. I don't mind showing up for him in this manner. Or it's going to show you, actually, like, I don't want to do this. And that's okay. It's important to live in your truth and for that to be seen.
And I've seen other podcasts or other interviews where I haven't seen, let's say it's a male. I've seen mostly women, right? Maybe because how my algorithm's set up. But the woman coming on there saying that, or you'll have the narrative of like, okay, if we both working full-time jobs, how can you expect me to come home and cook and clean?
Yeah. She right.
And the men are saying in a traditional home, that's part of your role as well.
Yeah.
So why can't I expect that?
Yeah.
And to your point, I think these are all conversations that have to be had before two people agree to come together, which heightens my point on marriage, where we talked about where people don't really understand what they're getting into when it's marriage.
I agree.
It's the second most selfless thing I think you can do. I think the first is having kids.
Yes.
The second most selfless thing you can do is allow somebody else into your life and share your life, not allow somebody, share your life, because you chose to do it with somebody else.
Yeah.
And, you know, and that's why I believe, again, a lot of people are not ready. I said it before in the other part, that a lot of people are not ready for marriage because these are the type of things that you have to do
in order for it to work.
Or for marriage to happen. It's just, if you're a woman, so you're the only one that can bear children.
Yeah.
I have to, but am I expect you to just clean and cook and stay home unless that's
what you guys agreed to?
If you're gonna be a stay-at-home mom or what the old folks will call it is a home, caretaker.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like
So I guess it will be interesting to talk about next week, are working moms happier?
Well, that's the whole other thing. Like, we got to look up some stats and stuff. What's better? But that's I guess I could direct that question to you or even a home. We could talk about the home on a whole. Anyway, that's for another line. We're going far ahead. We're going far ahead. But I think that's it for today. I think we had some very needed conversation. I like those topics where we really get in depth and we kind of work them out right here on set, right here on camera, on screen, on listening with us. Go ahead.
All right, guys. Well, thank you guys so much for tuning in on another week's episode of Couple Chronicles podcast with
your boy Lloyd
and Afia. Be sure to like, subscribe, and share.
See you guys next time. Peace. All right, thank you, guys. Thank you.